Deep in the heart of Africa lies the Congo, a place where breathtaking beauty collides with unthinkable horror. It's a land dripping with natural riches, yet scarred by tragedies so strange and brutal they almost feel unreal. Across this mysterious landscape, photographs have captured moments that disturb the soul and shatter our sense of reality. But be warned, once you see them, you won't be able to unsee them. Here are the 10 most chilling photographs ever taken in the Congo. Number 10. Mongo Shaman. This striking photo was taken back in 1937, deep in what is now the Equateur province of the Democratic Republic of Congo. At first glance, the woman looks calm and composed, but it's impossible to miss the raised scar right in the middle of her forehead, shaped like an almond and sitting boldly above her eyes. It almost seems like a third eye staring straight ahead. Official archives list her simply as a Mongo Shaman, but to her own people, she was known as Nganga, a spiritual guide who could move between the world of the living and the realm of the dead. The Mongo are one of Central Africa's largest ethnic groups, with about 3.8 million people living in the rainforest region of northwestern Congo. That area is roughly the size of Colorado and drenched in heavy rain for most of the year. In traditional Mongo life, the human body wasn't just flesh and bone. It was a canvas for stories. Scar patterns told the world everything: what age someone had reached, what clans they'd married into, and what spiritual roles they held. One design stood out above all the rest. Known as the cock's comb, it was a raised ridge that sat right between the eyebrows and stretched up the forehead. For those who believed in its power, it unlocked a kind of higher vision, a way to see beyond what normal eyes could. This woman's scar carries that exact pattern. It glows slightly in the light, and among her people, that meant she had crossed into realms few others dared to explore. Researchers at Oxford University's Pitt Rivers Museum call these scars lines of memory. To them, every mark preserved knowledge passed down for generations, like a book written on the body. As Nganga, she would have crafted spiritual charms by grinding bark and quartz into an Nkisi object. She could diagnose sickness by listening to drum rhythms and, according to legend, even trace enemy footsteps or call in rainfall by drawing spirals in the soil. When Christian missionaries came through in the late 1940s, many of them called these scars pagan mutilations. Belgian colonial officials tried to stamp out the practice entirely, but they mostly failed. Today, most Mongo youth attend church, and initiations like hers are rare. Still, the elders keep the old warnings alive. They say that the third eye never really shuts, and if you stare into it too long, the forest will stare right back. To the rest of the world, this photo might seem like a fading echo from the past, but to the Mongo, it's still alive. Number 9. Belgian officer with mutilated boy. Here we can see a Belgian officer dressed in spotless white, holding the severed arm of a Congolese boy who looks no older than 12. The photo was taken in 1904 near Baringa Mission, about 500 miles up the Congo River. It was captured by British missionary Alice Seeley Harris, whose small Kodak camera became a key tool in exposing the brutality of King Leopold II's rubber empire. The boy's hand wasn't lost to an accident. It was cut off on purpose, one of the most common punishments when a village failed to meet its rubber quota. Under Leopold's private rule over the Congo Free State, soldiers from the Force Publique and agents of the Anglo-Belgian India Rubber Company were required to prove that every bullet they used had killed someone, not been wasted on animals. Severed hands were counted as evidence. It didn't matter if the victim was innocent. If a village didn't produce enough latex, they paid with limbs. From 1885 to 1908, the Congo wasn't run by Belgium. It was personally owned by Leopold. During those years, modern historians estimate that between 4 and 10 million people died. Some were executed, others starved. Many were worked to death or died from disease after being forced off their farmland into rubber forests. That officer in white, calmly holding the boy's arm, represents the cold system that made it happen. Officers handed out targets, not caring how they were met. Missionaries like Alice and John Harris didn't just watch. They took hundreds of photos like this one and showed them on lantern slides across Britain and the United States. Their work helped launch the Congo Reform Association, led by Edmund Dean Morel. It became one of the first large human rights campaigns in modern history. Under pressure, Belgium finally took control of the territory in 1908, ending Leopold's rule, but not ending the exploitation. The boy's expression is haunting. His eyes are wide open, but dry. There's no shock, just acceptance. A 2020 study found that areas hit hardest by Leopold's regime still suffer today, with fewer vaccines and worse roads, proof that this violence didn't just hurt one generation. Number 8. Goma, engulfed by lava. In this next image, lava is seen pouring through a neighborhood on the northern edge of Goma, turning a once ordinary street into a moving wall of fire. The photo was taken just after nightfall on May 22, 2021, only a few hours after the summit of Mount Nyiragongo cracked open and released its lava lake straight downhill toward a city of about 2 million people. Mount Nyiragongo stands at 11,380 feet above sea level, roughly 6,500 feet higher than Lake Kivu at its base. What makes this volcano so dangerous is its lava. It's extremely thin and fast, due to its low silica, ultra-alkaline chemistry. In the past, lava from Nyiragongo has moved at speeds up to 60 miles per hour, fast enough to outrun a human. On this night, the lava moved slower, but still spread in 3 directions, covering more than 2 miles of the N2 highway and stopping just under 1 mile from Goma's international airport. By the next morning, over 400,000 people had evacuated the area, many of them on foot, carrying nothing but sleeping mats or plastic jugs. Drone footage and satellite thermal maps later confirmed that more than 3,600 homes, schools, and shops were buried under lava as thick as 10 feet. The official death toll reached 32. 9 people were killed in traffic accidents while fleeing, and at least 2 died when their homes caught fire. The lava also damaged water lines, while volcanic gas forced airlines to change flight routes across the region. For people living in Goma, it was a painful reminder. Back in 2002, a similar eruption killed 250 people and left 120,000 people without homes. The Goma Volcano Observatory, which tracks volcanic activity, had its funding cut just months before the 2021 eruption. Without enough money for proper equipment, scientists had to power their instruments with car batteries and relied on text messages to send out warnings. But there's still a bigger fear. Lake Kivu, which sits near the volcano, holds a massive amount of gas, mainly carbon dioxide, trapped under its surface. If magma ever cracks the lake bed, it could release that gas all at once, creating a deadly cloud like what happened at Lake Nyos in Cameroon in 1986, where over 1,700 people died overnight. Monitoring systems have now been updated with support from the World Bank, but Goma's safety still depends on a volcano whose lava lake sits just 8.5 miles from the city center. Number 7. Motorcycle corpse transport. In this next image, a man sits on a small motorbike with a tightly wrapped bundle strapped to the seat behind him. The bundle is shaped exactly like a person, held upright with green patterned cloth and tied securely with rope. To bystanders nearby, this isn't unusual. They know what it means. The motorbike is transporting a dead body back home for burial. In rural parts of Congo, this is common. Most villages don't have ambulances, and the nearest health center could be dozens of miles away. A 2022 report by the World Bank showed that Congo has over 75,000 miles of public roads, but only about 3% are paved. When heavy rains hit, entire regions become impossible to reach. Roads made from laterite soil quickly turn to deep mud, and vehicles can't pass through for weeks. Because of that, families use motorbikes, locally called motos, to transport everything, including the dead. A study funded by the United Kingdom's Department for International Development confirmed that motos are the most available and affordable way to move people and goods in rural Congo. They're used for farming supplies, medical emergencies, and funerals. Traditional customs say the dead must be returned to their ancestral village, even if that village is 50 or 60 miles away on rough roads. Renting a pickup truck can cost more than $300 United States dollars, which is around 5 months of income for many farmers. A motorbike, on the other hand, uses about $10 worth of gas and requires no paperwork or permit. The body is wrapped in a Katanga cloth, tied upright to the back seat, and taken on the journey. During the 2018 Ebola outbreak, health investigators found that some infections spread through motorbike drivers who carried bodies without wearing any protective equipment. The World Health Organization now tries to send trained burial teams into remote areas ahead of time, but many communities still rely on motos due to limited funding. In North Kivu's Butembo city alone, local unions estimate around 10,000 taxi motos operate every day. They help people move around, but they also raise serious health concerns. Some local organizations have started building moto ambulances by adding stretcher sidecars to motorbikes. Just one can serve villages spread across 25 miles of forest for a fraction of what a full ambulance would cost. In this context, what we're seeing isn't disrespect. It's what people do when there are no other options. The person on the back isn't cargo. They're being taken home, the only way possible. Number 6. Ensala of Walla. In this photograph, a man named Ensala sits alone on the wooden porch of a mission house near the Lulonga River. In front of him, placed on the mat, are the severed hand and foot of his 5-year-old daughter, Boali. The photo was taken on May 14, 1904 by British missionary Alice Seeley Harris, just moments after Force Publique soldiers gave him the remains. Ensala's village had failed to meet the day's rubber quota, and his wife, son, and daughter were killed. Harris didn't stage anything. She later said that Ensala simply sat there and wouldn't move. He didn't speak, he didn't cry, he just stared at what was left of his child. In the background, 3 other boys stand quietly, watching. The image feels quiet, but it says everything. The lawn is calm, the palm trees sway, but the silence is filled with something you can't unsee. This atrocity happened inside the ABIR Rubber Zone, a private 2-million-acre concession given to the Anglo-Belgian India Rubber Company. Even Leopold's own investigators later called it the black spot of Central Africa. Armed guards were allowed to take hostages, whip workers, and even commit cannibalism. They were paid partly in ivory and allowed to steal whatever they could. 8 months after this photo was taken, international pressure forced Belgium to take control of the Congo away from Leopold. But the company kept tapping rubber until the 1920s. As mentioned earlier, between 4 and 10 million people died during Leopold's rule. This single photo helped people understand what that number actually meant. Ensala's slumped shoulders, the tiny foot no longer moving, and the complete absence of help or justice. All of it made this image the most requested slide in over 200 public lectures in the United Kingdom and the United States. It helped build one of the first global human rights campaigns. Today, the Democratic Republic of Congo still ranks among the 5 poorest countries in the world, even though it holds more than $24 trillion worth of natural resources: cobalt, rubber, gold, and more. Number 5. Child Soldier. This photograph shows a boy who doesn't look older than 10 standing in the middle of a crowd wearing an oversized camouflage uniform. The sleeves hang over his hands and the pants almost swallow his legs. Slung over his shoulder is an AK-47. On his feet are worn-out flip-flops, and in his hand, a striped plastic bag, his entire demobilization kit. The photo was taken by AFP photographer Simon Mena at a United Nations transit center near Bunia in Ituri province in early 2006. This camp was part of Congo's national effort to get children out of armed groups, called the Disarmament, Demobilization, and Reintegration Program. The project began after the brutal Ituri conflict that lasted from 1999 to 2003. By April 30, 2006, more than 29,291 children had passed through similar camps across the country. Every single one was registered with a photo and given an ID before being referred to counseling or family reunification. But the numbers only told part of the story. That same year, UNICEF reported that between 30,000 and 50,000 children were still with militias or army units. That meant at least 1 in every 3 child soldiers hadn't turned in their weapon yet. Many of these kids, boys and girls, had been forced into combat after watching their families murdered. Rebel commanders used them because they were easy to control, could move quietly through forests, and didn't eat much. An AK-47 weighs just 7 pounds when unloaded, light enough for a child to handle, even on full automatic. One of the worst cases happened right in Ituri. On March 14, 2012, the International Criminal Court delivered its first-ever verdict. Thomas Lubanga Dailo, a militia leader, was found guilty of using children under the age of 15 during his 2-year campaign. He was later sentenced to 14 years in prison. It was a major legal milestone, but on the ground, it didn't stop the practice. A UN report from 2018 still listed Congo as one of the worst places in the world for child soldier recruitment, with thousands of new cases verified every year. NGOs working in the area now offer trauma support, catch-up classes, and job training in things like carpentry and tailoring. It's not perfect. Some kids return to militias when war flares up or when families can't afford to keep them home. But each surrendered gun is one less tool for a warlord. Number 4. Fallen Silverback carried by rangers. Here, we see a group of Virunga rangers and local villagers carrying the body of a 500-pound silverback gorilla named Senkwekwe. They've tied him to thick wooden poles, marching through rough terrain with the same care they would give a fallen comrade. The photo was taken on July 24, 2007, just after Senkwekwe was killed in the Makino sector of Virunga National Park. Getty photographer Brent Sturton captured the moment from a nearby cornfield. The image would go on to win the World Press Photo Award for contemporary issues and pull global attention toward a war that the guerrillas never asked to be part of. Senkwekwe was the leader of the Rugendo family, one of 8 habituated groups that brought ecotourism revenue to eastern Congo. Over just 2 days, unknown gunmen, believed to be charcoal traffickers working with armed militias, shot and killed 7 guerrillas, including a pregnant female. Senkwekwe alone was found with 12 bullet wounds to his neck and chest. Experts believe he was targeted to destroy the troops' main line of defense. At the time, there were only about 720 mountain gorillas left in the world, around 380 in the Virunga region, the rest in Uganda's Bwindi forest. Losing even one gorilla meant wiping out a fraction of a percent of an already fragile species. The rangers carried his body nearly 3 miles to the Rumangabo Park headquarters. That's where they buried him, and where, 3 years later, the Senkwekwe Center was built in his name. To this day, it remains the only mountain gorilla orphanage on Earth. Protecting Virunga is dangerous work. Since the mid-1990s, more than 200 park rangers have been killed on the job, many by the same militia groups that fund themselves through illegal charcoal and mineral trade. The Fallen Rangers Fund now helps their families with basic support through private donations and tourism fees. Senkwekwe's killing didn't stop the violence, but it sparked action. Within 1 year, 3 major charcoal traffickers connected to the attacks were arrested, and the park started using satellite tracking to monitor illegal activity. According to Conservation Director Emmanuel de Merode, these efforts have helped reduce industrial charcoal burning inside gorilla territory by more than 40%. Today, mountain gorilla numbers have passed 1,000. They've moved from critically endangered to just endangered. But progress still feels fragile. Rangers in Virunga go to work wearing body armor, and this image of Senkwekwe's body carried through the forest reminds us that in this place, protecting wildlife often means risking everything. Number 3. Giant Snake of Katanga. On a hot, humid day in 1959, Belgian pilot Colonel Remy van Lierde spotted something over southern Katanga that left his crew frozen in disbelief. As their small helicopter flew about 800 feet above the ground on its way back to Kamina Air Base, the forest canopy below suddenly shifted and then curved into a massive dark S-shape. Whatever it was stretched longer than a train car and had blotchy bronze and olive skin. Van Lierde circled the area twice, but on the third pass, the creature lifted part of its body nearly 10 feet off the ground, like it was warning them to back off. That was all the crew needed to see. They quickly snapped a photo and pulled the chopper higher to get out of there fast. Later that evening, the photo was developed. What they saw confirmed their shock. A snake that Van Lierde believed measured close to 50 feet from head to tail and about 2 feet wide at its thickest point. He described its head as triangular and about 3 feet across, with a pale underbelly that caught the light as it moved. Local Luba villagers had already told stories of a river serpent they called Mokele Mamba, a massive snake said to attack goats and even fishermen near the Lufira River. But no one expected to catch a glimpse of it from the air. Scientists weren't convinced. Africa's biggest known snake, the Central African rock python, usually doesn't grow beyond 20 feet. The green anaconda in South America holds the record at about 33 feet, and the longest reticulated pythons ever recorded barely pass 25 feet. A snake stretching 50 feet would be heavier than a full-grown Nile crocodile, and would definitely leave behind massive shed skins or signs of its presence. But so far, nothing like that has turned up in Central Africa. Some experts say the photo might be misleading. The helicopter was banking during the shot, and shadows or terrain could have distorted what the crew saw. It might have been a large vine, or even 2 smaller snakes lying end to end. When cryptozoologist Bernard Heuvelmans included the image in his catalog back in 1978, even he admitted it was blurry and lacked clear-scale references. A Discover magazine review from 2023 agreed, pointing out there was no visible detail, just a faint outline and no follow-up discovery of a carcass or skin. Still, people keep reporting strange sightings. Miners near Shituru Swamp, fishermen on Lake Changalele, all claim they've seen a massive shape gliding through the water and then vanishing into reeds. Katanga's wetlands are full of fish, birds, and muddy shores, which would be perfect hunting grounds for a creature like this. But with so much of the region still unexplored due to ongoing conflict, no one's been able to prove what Van Lierde saw that day. Until someone finds a living body or a dead one, the giant snake of Katanga remains stuck between wild legend and the edge of scientific discovery. Number 2. Giant Spider. This old, grainy photo might look like a patch of damp tree bark at first, but look closer and your heart skips. Wrapped tightly against the trunk is something alive. A dark oval body pressed to the wood, with 8 thick legs stretching out so naturally that it almost seems like the forest built the creature itself. The villagers who helped the photographer through the northern Congo weren't surprised. They called it jibafofi, a Baka phrase that means giant spider. According to local lore, a fully grown jibafofi can reach nearly 6 feet across from leg to leg, about the same as a medium-sized dog sprawled out. Elders say it builds its home just below the forest floor, lining hidden tunnels with silk and laying a web across the entrance so thin it's nearly invisible. When something steps on it, whether a small antelope, a rat, or even a human, it's all over in a flash. The spider strikes fast and without warning. Most of the world first heard about jibafofi in 1938, after a strange road incident made headlines. A British missionary couple, Reginald and Marguerite Lloyd, were driving near what we now call Bawele Province when something massive scurried across the path and forced them off the road. They described a spider with a body over 1 foot long and legs that looked like palm leaves slowly unfolding. Even more chilling were older Baka accounts of white spiderlings hatching from egg sacs the size of ping-pong balls, turning darker as they grew into the black giants people feared. Explorer and cryptozoologist Bill Gibbons was so fascinated that he led 2 separate expeditions into the area in the late 1980s. He met hunters who swore they'd seen spiders the size of cooking pots and claimed a single bite could bring a deadly fever in just a few hours. They showed him old logs, each one pierced with perfect circular holes. What they believed were the spider's hiding spots. Of course, science needs hard evidence. The biggest spider confirmed by researchers is the Goliath bird-eater from South America, with a leg span of around 12 inches and a weight of 6 ounces. That alone is terrifying, but no lab, museum, or expedition has ever found a real jibafofi. No camera trap, used for studying okapi or elephants, has ever caught one. Skeptics say it's probably a misidentified spider, a hoax, or just the human brain turning shadows into monsters. But still, this photo stays with you. Maybe it's just a trick of the light. Or maybe, deep in the rainforest, something is watching. Quiet, patient, and very real. Number 1. Kulaka Hybrid Ape. This photo, taken back in 1996 at the Mvogue Betsi Zoo just outside Yaoundé, shows what looks at first like a regular chimpanzee clutching a wire fence. But the longer you look, the more off it feels. The forehead sticks out more than usual, the jaw is wider, and the muzzle is oddly flat. Something doesn't add up. Zoo staff quietly called him Kulaka, a name tied to old legends about a strange hybrid between a chimpanzee and a gorilla. That legend goes way back to the 1860s, when French explorer Paul du Chaillu claimed he saw apes with round heads, high cheekbones, and eerie cries that sounded like Kulaka. He even sent skulls back to Paris that didn't quite match any known species, measuring right between a full-grown chimp and a young gorilla. Over a century later, the mystery came roaring back when conservationists Peter Jenkins and Liza Gadsby shared a photo of this animal, named Antoine, in a global primate protection newsletter. They wanted scientists to take a serious look. Geneticists were quick to bring up a major issue. Gorillas and chimpanzees may both have 48 chromosomes, but their genetic sequences are too different to create viable hybrid babies. In fact, all the genetic testing done on odd-looking apes from Cameroon and Gabon has shown no hint of gorilla DNA. Every one of them, including those like Antoine, tested as central chimpanzees, pan-troglodytes. Still, scientists admit that isolated forests can shape wild variations. Just like the mysterious billy apes in northern Congo turned out to be unusually large chimps who lived mostly on the ground, Antoine might just show off rare features that already exist in his species. But there's a darker story behind that cage. The United Nations reports that around 3,000 great apes, many still babies, are taken from the wild each year to be sold illegally. Most of the time, the adults in the group are killed just to get to the young ones. And things aren't any better for gorillas. Since 1994, the western lowland gorilla population, closely related to Cameroon's chimps, has dropped by more than 60%. Between poaching, deforestation, and deadly Ebola outbreaks, there are now fewer than 80,000 left in the wild. So whether Antoine is a rare hybrid or just a unique-looking chimp, this photo remains unsettling. Thanks for watching. See you in our next video.